Welcome back. Kelly Stewart joined here by our Northern Sun guru, David Brown, to talk hoops. The guru, I haven't used that in a while.
You haven't. I still think it's not necessary, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Well, before off camera. Northern what?
Northern Sun.
There we go. Okay. Anyways.
We're getting all the Coach Carter references out of the way.
I can't wait to watch that. Anyways, so the NSIC tournament coming up February 24th through the 27th, but there is still a lot of basketball to be played, a lot going on, and a lot this past weekend.
Absolutely.
So on the women's side, David, what was your biggest takeaway from this past weekend of hoops?
The consistency of the MSU Moorhead women. They just continue to go about their business and simply win. They've won 11 in a row now. 8 of those 11 wins by double digits. Drew Sanis, the preseason player of the year, won her second straight Player of the Week award in the past 3 weekends. 20 points, 9 boards on Friday, 19 and 13 on Saturday. A couple of weeks ago, remember, I talked about her influence and how her numbers, despite being down from previous years, they don't really tell the entire story, and I think that's kind of been exemplified this season because the Dragons simply have more depth. Case in point, over the last 5 games, 5 different Dragons have led the team in scoring, so they're not having to rely so much on Sanis and developing more around her, and that's going to be critical come postseason time. Remember, last year, MSU Moorhead, they were the top seed in the NSIC tournament, and they lost in the second round to Sioux Falls because they matched up well with Sanis, and the parts around her couldn't really pick up the slack adequately enough. So this year, Sanis is one of 4 Dragons averaging double figures in points. Jackie Volkert near the top of the conference, dishing out nearly 6 assists a game. Cassidy Thorson, one of the league leaders in three-point shooting. Megan Hintz establishing herself as another post presence alongside Sanis. So I think MSU Moorhead, Kelly, is built better than last season, and their play over the last 2 months proves that they still have yet to lose a game in 2018. 11 wins in a row now for the Dragons. They are simply flying, no pun intended.
Oh my goodness, this segment is just chock full of great stuff.
It is already.
Well, most surprising result, David, from the weekend on the women's side?
Both a combination of good and bad, and it's from one game. That's Minot State's 26-point win at home over Winona State on Friday night. We'll start with the good. Other than the Dragons, the Beavers have the longest winning streak on the women's side of the NSIC at 5 games, and I don't think even the most objective observers would have pegged that. Just to illustrate how far out of the hole Minot State has had to climb, those 5 wins in a row, Kelly, they get them back to 500 in conference play. But give credit where credit's due. 5 in a row, 7 wins in their last 10 games, and they're doing it with efficiency. Beavers are top 5 in the league in field goal percentage, 3-point field goal percentage, and free throw percentage. And although it's obvious to me, that just indicates they're taking quality shots and letting the game come to them. They're not overly flashy, they just simply get the job done. So hats off to first-year coach Mark Groppi and the Beavers. On the other side, however, Winona State has fallen off dramatically. I'm honestly kind of baffled at how they've lost 6 games in a row because they look so good to start the year. As far as I'm aware, there haven't been any major injuries. Hannah McGlone's played and started every game. Still the only NSIC player averaging a double-double. Perhaps being the only senior on the team is starting to wear out on the others who are a little more inexperienced in terms of the length of the season and what their roles are down the stretch here. Warriors still in line to host a first-round tournament game, but they honestly need to pick it up these final 3 weekends of the regular season, or they very easily could be one and done.
Hey, good for Minot State.
Absolutely.
Absolutely proud of them.
First-year coach finally getting his girls to play together.
There you go. That's really cool. Well, moving to the men's side, kind of the same question I asked you about the women, but the biggest takeaway for the men over the weekend.
Trayvon Evans is making a name for himself from University of Sioux Falls, really starting to become a threat in this conference. He won NSIC South Player of the Week for 2 outstanding games. Now, granted, his team lost on Friday at Northern State, but he scored a career-high 42 points, and he was honestly about the only thing going on offense for USF that night. He was their only player in double figures, did it from inside and outside, showed a lot of quickness, a lot of versatility, but more impressive than his career-high 42 in what was a 21-point loss is what he did the next night. Quick turnaround after a bus ride, getting into Moorhead around 1 a.m., and as you see there, he steps back and hits the game-winning three-pointer at MSU Moorhead with under a second to go. I talked to Evans earlier this week. He's a junior college transfer from Kansas. USF, he says, was his only legitimate offer coming out of JUCO, so an absolute steal for the Cougars. Drew Giebert's been a little bit up and down lately, but if he and Evans can both simultaneously be threats on the court, sort of that 1A, 1B, that's going to cause a lot of matchup issues down the line. They're the only tandem in the top 5 in the conference in scoring, and Trayvon Evans is starting to show how he can hold his own against the rest of the NSIC.
I love to hear stories like that. You know, they don't get a lot of chances, but then to make the most of it, that's really cool. Well, looking to the men's side again, most surprising result from the weekend, David?
Well, I think Upper Iowa sweeping the longest road trip of the season. That's not easy to go on the road and win at UMary and at Minot State. Fayette, Iowa to Bismarck, North Dakota is a 10-hour bus trip. And the Peacocks honestly have not played up to their potential this season. That bus ride is tough. And especially after making a run to the NSIC Tournament Championship last year, Kelly. But now they've won 3 in a row, starting to gain some momentum at the right time. First against the Marauders, an overtime victory. Bad enough you just traveled 10 hours the day before, but then you have to play extra basketball on the front end of a back-to-back with a road trip in between. That's tough. So some grit from the Peacocks to pull that one off. And then the next night here, facing probably the most surprising team in the NSIC this season on the men's side in Minot State, they put up 99 points. There's enough veteran presence on this Upper Iowa team, guys like Carson Parker, Cam Rowan, Dennis Austin III, that can help the Peacocks come tournament time, getting 2 on the road on that longest road trip of the season. It's the longest in the entire NSIC that had to make the ride back home all that much sweeter.
Oh, it had to. I mean, anything could be better than that. But done with the past, on to the future. What's a game you're looking forward to the most this weekend?
Saturday night, Minnesota State at St. Cloud State. These are the second and third best teams record-wise in the NSIC on the men's side, behind Northern State. Mavericks and Huskies each riding winning streaks. Based on the respective Friday matchups, I expect both those streaks to continue heading into that Saturday showdown. It will have been 7 in a row for the Mavericks, 5 in a row for the Huskies. A good test in St. Cloud with a Husky team that sort of found its stride with the right personnel, and a Minnesota State team that has been consistent the entire year, Kelly. I think this is going to be a great matchup once we get down the stretch here, and an early indicator of what we can expect a month from now.
All right, that sounds like a good matchup, and live doubleheader on Friday.
Absolutely. UMary at Sioux Falls, 6 and 8 p.m. Women's game first at 6, men's games at 8. We'll see if USF can bounce back from a so-so road trip on the men's side and a 0-2 mark on the women's side.
All right, great stuff. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
Well, coming up after the break, the North Dakota men's basketball team is on a 3-game losing streak, but looks to turn things around with a 2-game homestand this weekend. Hear what head coach Brian Jones has to say about his squad next on Midco Sports Tonight.